The Premier says she knows everybody is suffering, but the lockdown has to continue for an extra week. Gladys Berejiklian says this period could be the biggest challenge the state faces since the start of the pandemic. The Delta strain continues to spread with another 27 cases. The Premier insists the only way to make this the last lockdown is to make it longer. State political reporter Ashleigh begins our coverage.
It's not the news she wanted to deliver, but the Premier insists there's no other way.
What we want to do is give us our best chance of making sure this is the only lockdown we have until the vast majority of our citizens are vaccinated.
So the lockdown will be extended for another week.
This is really a crunch time for the community, where the destiny is in your hands.
For some, it's a heavy weight to bear.
I feel despondent now. I think we were all looking forward to getting let out.
I think it's good that it's extended. It hasn't really got under control yet.
The lockdown will continue for not only Sydney, but the Blue Mountains, Wollongong, Shellharbour and the Central Coast as well.
The Central Coast has been a good performer and we shouldn't be penalised as a result.
There hasn't been too many cases around here, so I think probably, yes, they shouldn't have been included.
Students won't return to face-to-face classes in Greater Sydney next week. Those outside the lockdown in regional areas will, but the tight restrictions there will remain.
Whilst the virus at the moment isn't in regional New South Wales, which is a great thing, we need to make sure it stays that way.
There are 27 new cases. 9 of those, the source is unknown. Only 13 were in isolation while infectious. The rest were out, potentially spreading the virus. And there's concern that's happening in the Fairfield, Canterbury-Bankstown and Liverpool council areas. The message for people there is to stay home. It's a blow for local businesses.
I'm going to lose this work because of all the lockdowns.
This is the second lockdown in 6 months for the Northern Beaches.
Now having to redo it all again, I'm really afraid that we're going to be doing a lot of damage to our business.
The government says it's tried to balance the health of the community with the needs of the economy. But today's decision is undeniably devastating for businesses. So much so, the state is pleading with the Commonwealth for more income support.
New South Wales has really carried the burden in terms of economic activity, and now if we need extra support, I hope it's there.
We're not about to bring back JobKeeper. That was an emergency support payment that had an initial time frame.
The time frame has passed, but the time of need has not. Ashleigh, ABC News, Sydney.
And Ashleigh is live for us tonight in Sydney. Ashleigh, clearly there are tough times ahead and there's still no guarantee the lockdown will end even after this extra week.
Well, Anita, it's the Premier's intention to end the lockdown at the end of next week, but there's no certainty. Gladys Berejiklian has put the onus on the people of Greater Sydney to abide by the stay-at-home orders if this lockdown is to end. By and large, people have had great faith in the government's handling of COVID, but that was when New South Wales was held up as the gold standard of COVID management. So the Premier will be hoping that the mood doesn't shift now. When faced with a barrage of questions at today's press conference about the government's decision-making over the past couple of weeks around this lockdown, Gladys Berejiklian dismissed any notion that things could or should have been done differently. She says she remains focused on the task at hand, which will include Juanita providing a roadmap that's likely to have several stages to get us out of this lockdown and beyond.
Ashleigh reporting there. What started in Sydney's east is now worrying health authorities in the city's southwest. The virus is spreading, especially among family members as they visit each other. The Premier is pleading with people there to stay home.
Cars are full up and everyone is getting tested. Even the littlest family members are putting on a brave face.
It had a little hurt, but I was all right.
Christine Ramos, her 3 children and her mother were all tested at Fairfield Showgrounds.
And if everyone just locked down, stay inside, do what you need to do, just the essentials, then I'm frustrated that it shouldn't have got to this point.
Just follow the rule, make everybody safe, everybody okay. That's why I come for a check.
Suburbs in Sydney's southwest are now on high alert, specifically Bosley Park, Smithfield, Fairfield, West Hoxton, Bass Hill, St John's Park, Canley Vale and Greenfield Park.
And I think the message to our local community is to let's protect our families by trying to stay away from our families for a short while.
Local leaders say the government needs to step up its communication with multicultural communities.
Because of the necessity to get everything out quite quickly, so sometimes the language that used in the translation are not 100% understandable.
I really do need the Premier and the government to really push hard on their social media avenues with the ethnic communities we have, and not just the top 3 or 4, but all of them.
There have been some breaches. The owner of this barbershop at Liverpool and a customer were fined $1,000 each. The streets are quieter now, but there's a feeling from some in the community that because of the focus on Sydney's east, a sense of complacency has grown here. The Premier has warned harsher restrictions are already being considered if things don't quickly come under control.
In those 3 local government areas, limit your movement. I mean, the New South Wales government doesn't want to go to the next stage, but we are even considering if there are any further actions we need to take.
A call to action as people brace for big infection numbers tomorrow. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Sydney.
And let's go live to Kathleen Calderwood in Fairfield. Kathleen, how are people in the southwest feeling about the prospect of even more restrictions?
Well, Juanita, as we've been speaking to people around the southwest, they're of course frustrated that this outbreak, which started on the other side of the city, has now reached their area and in such a serious way. There's also been some concerns expressed that people are being asked to really restrict their movement between family households, even if they have those caring responsibilities, when of course the public health order hasn't actually been altered. Now, the Premier did of course allude to the fact that more restrictions could be introduced, and that's brought forward that urgent call for more people to get tested. Now, we're at the Fairfield Showgrounds testing site where, as you can see behind me, it's not terribly busy at the moment. There has been a steady stream throughout the day, but we haven't been seeing those long lines like we've seen in reaction to other previous outbreaks. They've actually extended the operating hours of this site till 10 o'clock, so the council and other local leaders really calling for people to come forward in those large numbers like they did in response to the Crossroads Hotel outbreak to try and get on top of this before any more restrictions need to be introduced.
Calderwood reporting there. Homeschooling in Sydney is back for at least a week. It's a reality that most students and parents are probably dreading. And for HSC students, it's an added stress. They're due to start trial exams in just 2 weeks.
Trying to juggle crucial deals on his tech startup with kids home from school is already all too familiar to Justin Wastnage.
Whenever you're on a call, you hear this, "Dad, can you get me this? Dad, can you get me that?"
The family's taken today's news in their stride.
I have a great teacher, so I think they'll make homeschooling quite fun.
I've sort of got mixed emotions.
Our strong preference is that parents keep children at home for homeschooling for the 4 days. But if they have no other option, the child is welcome on the school playground.
Across Sydney, parents scrambled to make plans.
Both my husband and I are essential workers, so they'll have to go on those days.
It's a catch-22. I mean, I need to focus on online learning and teaching my classes. How am I going to teach my kids too?
It'll be hard, but it'll be enjoyable, I reckon.
Not all kids are enthusiastic about the idea.
I'm going to miss that we don't get to play with our friends. Like before to go to school.
And for those in Year 12, like Zephyr Saman, it's an added pressure.
I felt like really stressed, mostly because of like the unknown factor of it. I was like, well, are we going to do trials?
It is a bit of a rite of passage that they're missing out on. I feel quite sad for Zeph.
While the government was making its decision on remote learning, it was also trying to hose down community anger about how it came to vaccinate more than 100 ineligible students from this exclusive private school. New South Wales Health has apologised, but the minister lashed out when asked whether his department should be embarrassed by the error.
You know what? The school intended it well, there was a mistake, and so what? It's happened. Out of 1 million vaccinations, move on.
But moving on from COVID is proving a habit that's hard to break. Sarah Geraghty, ABC News, Sydney.
The number of people in hospital and intensive care from this outbreak, including relatively young people, is a reminder of just how serious COVID-19 is. 37 people are in hospital with the disease. 14 of those are aged under 55, and of those, 8 are under 35.
So the fact that 37 patients have been admitted to hospital should indicate to the community the fact that COVID, including the Delta strain, is not a mild disease. It can be mild in some, but for many it can lead to hospitalisation and death.
7 people are in intensive care, 2 are on ventilators. The youngest person in ICU is aged in their 30s. 1 is in their 50s, 2 in their 60s and 3 are in their 70s.